Bonani Nonke, good day, good afternoon, good morning, sorry. I'm the one who came late, so that's why I'm saying good afternoon. I'm actually very encouraged by the turnout here today, and I want to really extend a warm congratulations to Bridges, and I always call you Bridges, it's Bridge, and CoZA Cares. I think it's a fantastic sign, a very encouraging sign that there's a collective commitment to deal with what everyone is now calling a crisis in South Africa, and which shockingly the World Economic Forum called us the worst education system in the world compared to 60 countries, 60 odd countries. And when I read that, I thought, part of me, excuse my language, I thought, up yours. We're going to mobilize a community to address this crisis. And I think this turnout today gives me great courage that it is entirely possible to do that. But I think in doing that, I'm arguing that it becomes very important to change the plot in the ICT for Education story in South Africa. And what I'll be doing is I'll be taking a helicopter view. Janet Thompson always calls me the big picture person, so I will be taking a big picture view, hence the person at the bottom here with the magnifying glass, just looking at the system itself. And the reality is that we have actually, as an ICT for Education community, we've come of age. We're 21 years old today if one documents the history of the establishment of the Western Cape Schools Network in 1990. And over the years, we've seen many initiatives, some of which I've been associated with and some of which are mentioned there, and not everyone is there. But this community is 21 years old. And I asked myself, when the textbook crisis hit the media, I asked myself, what is it that we have to show for ourselves after 21 years? And why is it that this crisis is happening? And what contribution is this community making? And for someone who's been traipsing around the world, traipsing all over Africa, I asked myself deeply, charity begins at home. How come, with the experience that I've got, we have crises of this nature still happening when we've been evangelizing the role that technologies can play in improving education systems? And so, throughout our history, there's been a dominant language still that ICT is the silver bullet, is the magic wand. And I sometimes have to check myself when I make the case, and it's a case we're still building, when I make the case that ICTs can, in fact, it has the potential to improve education access, to improve quality in education, and very importantly in this country, to improve equity in education. But still the dominant language is on the device. It is on the device and the software. Our debates are about open source and proprietary, and for a long time our debates was also about second-hand PCs and so on. But today, it is as if also we're saying the tablet, I'm very aware that there's tablet fever on the rise at the moment, and it is a warning that we can get caught up in the language of the device, and that the device offers a silver bullet to what is an incredibly complex and increasingly complex crisis. So if you had to ask me, what have we learned over the last 21 years as a South African community? And for me, often, I know we talk about lessons learned, we talk about failure. For me, it's about how do we put into practice that which we have learned. And looking at it again from a helicopter view across the whole system, we recognize that we need to be really true to our purpose. And I want to come back to the question of our purpose. What is it that we're really here for? What is our purpose? And I'll come back to that. And often we've argued that it is an educational objective. And for many of us, it's also a social objective, a social purpose. But often we've lost sight of that because we got caught up with the complexities of introducing technologies into the system, and often got caught up with greater complexity that has caused. We've learned that we need to have a whole systems approach. And we have experience in South Africa of projects and initiatives who have tried to use a whole systems approach, in fact. We've learned, now I don't use language like, someone said content is king, and I'm arguing that the context is queen, and my son plays chess and he reminds me that the queen is the most powerful piece in the game of chess. So context, matters greatly, and often when people talk about lessons learned, they talk about what's happened in another part of the world with the understanding that it can just somehow be replicated in a different context, when often we have not appreciated the immense complexity that our local contexts provide when we integrate ICTs in education. We also learned, and a recent study by Michael Fullan has also reminded us, that leadership is absolutely critical, but leadership at all levels. And in some countries, the leadership was played by the president of the country, which made a difference. But we're also talking about the leadership in the classroom, the teachers, and also encourage the learners to play a leading role. And we've got great examples of that in South Africa as well. Political will, absolutely important, and I don't need to remind us of that. And of course, working effectively with a partner ecosystem. And often when people hear partner ecosystem, they think, oh, we must bring on board the private sector. But there are many great examples of the partner ecosystem within a community at local level, bringing in the local shops, the community organizations and so on. And so a partner ecosystem at every level of the national system as well. So those are some of the dominant lessons that we've learned. But we've also evolved in our language when telling the story and engaging with story. Trudy van Wyk isn't here, but we used to call her Madam Warmware or Warmware, because she would always say, it's not just about the hardware and the software, it's also about the warmware. And for a long time we talked about Warmware, the warmware, it's important, the teachers, teacher development, the pedagogy is what matters. And then I remember being part of the NEPAD eSchools initiative and also discussing it about it in South Africa, and we adopted the language, the dominant language in the technology private sector system. They talk about end-to-end solutions, and I'd often joke, so you've got the solution, what problem are we addressing? And we try to articulate what the so-called end-to-end solution is. Viz Naidu isn't here, but he's been instrumental in developing at the time in the early 90s this idea of an ICT for education value chain, which is about looking at all the aspects in the system and making sure that we have an integrated approach. But the reality is that we've also continuously learned what that exactly means. And I'm arguing that the dominant mode of thinking in our community has been linear, when in reality we are confronted with many, many layers of complexity, and that we need to shift the way we think about the education system and the role of ICTs within this, because often we've talked about the problem and then finding a solution in a very linear way, and we can argue about that, but in my humble experience and being involved in a number of projects, there's been a lot of conceptualization in that way. And also in the way we've practiced it, we've been very, very caught up in our own little cute interventions and our siloed practice. So I've given some of us each a silo, and I'm the fabulously fallible person who's been involved in many of these silos myself. So in looking at us, I'm also looking at my own role. And we've got to understand why. If Fiona made a call about we need to move away from this, it would be important to understand what has led us to be like this, And so when we are in our silos, we tend to lose sight of the system as a whole, and whether we are in fact making any kind of inroad in addressing the problems that the system faces. And so, what we've experienced then over the last 21 years, our story is filled with system breakdown, with surprise, with disruption, and with greater complexity. And I argue that even in some cases, we have created greater complexity. We've created failure because of our approach. And this is not about blaming. This is an attempt to look seriously at how we're operating. Because AISH is the operative word in our education system. And I've also made the point recently that we are expecting a Musa AISH, basically. And that Musa AISH is defined by a wave of even greater disruption and complexity that the technology systems that we are now confronting with compared to 21, I'm looking at Kobus and other people, Dick Rayner, I saw him here earlier on, who've been involved in the system for so long. we've often been obsessed with the ICT PC lab and rolling out the PC lab, but the rise of mobile technologies, including cloud computing, crowdsourcing, Web 2.0, that lethal combination is catalyzing disruption in our society and in our systems that we have yet to comprehend. That's my contention. And I'm saying that we've got to try and make sense of how that wave of disruption is going to, in fact, and is already manifesting itself in the education system outside of the existing problems that we are already facing. And so I'm proposing that we have a sense-making endeavor where we revisit what is our purpose? What is our collective purpose for being here? Now, many of us have said that it's an educational challenge that we're addressing. And I've now been part of conversations where the purpose, I think, is being defined very clearly about the fact that we are here to improve learner performance and learner outcomes in South Africa. That's why we're here. That's our purpose. And that if we can rally around how best can we demonstrate the potential of ICT in education to meet that purpose, because that is the one, and yes, there are measurable indicators to demonstrate how our learners are performing, and we can question those indicators, but that's essentially what I think we still need to clarify. And it's part of our sense-making endeavor, and it's part of getting a sense of how disruption and change, uncertainty, unpredictability, constant surprise, and breakdown and systems failure manifests in our education system. And then linked to our purpose in a very sort of systemic way is what problem are we addressing? I'm still asking that question, what problem are we addressing? And I'm asking it always because for many of us, we were caught up with solving a technology problem. Let us talk again collectively. What problem are we addressing, and how can we make the case for ICT in education to play an instrumental role in supporting our addressing of that problem? And more, we are being asked, what are the underlying values that guide us in our purpose and in addressing the problem? And when we talk about a call to action, I find it quite daunting to say a call to action, although I love the idea of a campaign, because I do think, and many of us have been saying, that a campaign is what we need. But we can campaign only and have a call to action if we've clarified this and we agree that we will collectively work together to make sense constantly of what it is that we are dealing with and how that's going to guide our action. And so much of our culture has been premised on blame, and one can possibly understand that because of the enormity of the challenges. And I've learned, and my kids remind me as well, that when you blame, you don't learn. When you're defensive, you don't learn. So how can we as a community foster a learning culture, an engaging learning culture free from or engage with our defensiveness when we are defensive, understandably, but that we engage with it because our collective purpose and the problem we're solving is more clearly defined. So my call is that we try and work out how we foster a learning culture in our practice and what that exactly means. And I think part of that answer is that we need to harness our collective intelligence. And often I ask myself, what does that mean for the way I need to behave? Because, I've been doing a lot of work around working with multiple perspectives in complex situations. And the reality is that we will only figure out that this is an elephant if we all work together, if we all engage collectively in the conversation. And so my appeal to this group is that we define for ourselves what that is. Because I've learned, for me, is that it means I deal and engage with the other. And sometimes the other is the private sector, certain companies in the private sector. Or I deal with, our competition, This one is competing with that one. Engaging in our collective intelligence means engaging with the competition. It means engaging with the irritations, the stuff that irks you, but we've got to overcome that because there's a bigger agenda and we mustn't lose sight of that. So when Fiona says to me that there's a call for action, I think we need to talk about what that means in terms of harnessing our collective intelligence. And I think that if we do that, we would go much further in demonstrating that the education system in this country can be rescued. And again, I'm not arguing that the technology will rescue it, but this community has a fantastic accumulated knowledge over 21 years that we can harness in the name of saving education. I think it was the lady from Obama who said, it's interesting the publicity that Save the Rhino received. And I think that we now reached a space where we can call for saving our education system, and this is the only way we're going to do this. And so on that note, I'd like to leave it there for a conversation about how we do that. Thank you very much, Fiona, for the opportunity to speak. And I'm hoping that this will become a real conversation around how we take that action forward. Thank you very much.